Hi everyone, so today is Self-Injury Awareness Day. So I wasn't really sure about what video to kind of do about because there's so many topics surrounding self-injury. So I decided to maybe talk just a little bit about myself and my own story with self-injury. And what I was hoping for is maybe people to do their own video responses or just post in a comment and just to share your story about self-injury. So I guess what I'm kind of trying to do for this video is kind of raise awareness about self-injury and everyone sharing the story and kind of coming together on it, because I think self-injury isn't really always seen as one of those big things. Sometimes it's kind of seen as just a coping mechanism, but for some people that is their main thing, self-injury. So I thought it'd be nice if people could just kind of come together and just be sharing the stories together and just kind of all being united for Self-Injury Awareness Day. Obviously, I don't assume that you're going to be all commenting back and doing video responses by tonight, but you know, it's always an ongoing thing. It doesn't have to be a specific day to be doing something like this. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about myself. I started self-injuring towards the end of 2008. My self-injury started because through my eating disorder. Towards the end of 2008 was when things was really bad. My mum was admitted me to an inpatient unit for treatment. So I gained weight back, and you know, everything was just stripped away from me. Everything that I was, you know, my life was consumed with for months was stripped away from me, basically. And obviously that was really hard to cope with. I remember the first time I self-harmed, and that was after an argument I had with my mum about getting my exercise bike back. And I don't know, I think I was aware of self-injury. Obviously I think I kind of scratched a bit before, but it was never something I really got into. But then that night, you know, it was horrible. Really, it was probably the worst I've ever cut. So yeah, it came about because of the weight gain. Obviously, I found it really hard to cope, and I just felt so out of control. And I wanted, you know, obviously with a lot of cutters, it's their way of expressing themselves, and that's how it was. You know, I couldn't get a grip of anything, and I couldn't explain to everybody how I was feeling. You know, because I was alone at that point as well, because my counsellor was away. So that was kind of my way of expressing myself, and that's how I got my feelings out, and that's why I turned to self-injury. There was a few things that went on with me. It's all a bit blurry, to be honest, because it was such a horrible time, and I think it's something I want to remember, but there was a lot of things that happened that meant that people found out. There was one friend that I confided in, and I know this sounds a bit kind of horrible and stuff, but we was both doing it, so we was kind of showing each other kind of thing, you know. I don't know, I don't really want to go into that, but anyway, my parents just found out, and obviously they was very mad about it. There was a lot of hoo-ha because my counsellor knew before, you know, she knew and she didn't tell them, basically. So obviously they was very mad about that, but that's all in the past now. But yeah, it was a really hard time. My parents found it really hard to wonder why I would want to do that to myself, and why I would have caused such, you know, pain on myself, because, you know, I did do it bad. I do have horrible scars. You know, I did some very horrible things to myself. You know, I think a lot of people just think when people self-harm, you know, they just, you know, just cut a bit on their arm sort of thing. But I did all sorts to myself. I think one of the worst things I ever did was on my stomach, which thank God has not scarred, but I outlined something on my stomach. My friends knew, eventually. It was never something that I directly told them, but I think they just noticed the scars and just put things together, and you know, there's a lot of stuff going on, and I've really got close friends, and I think they were just kind of aware that, you know, things wasn't great, and it was really hard because, you know, for months I wore leg warmers to cover my scars on my arms, because for PE we all had to get changed together, and so obviously I had to get undressed in front of people, and that was really hard to deal with because I felt like I was lying right in front of everybody, and I wanted to tell my friends, but at the same time I didn't want to drag them into it. I didn't want them to be thinking that their friend was sat cutting themselves in their bedroom, you know, and there was kind of nothing they could do to help me. So I was already seeing my counsellor, obviously, because of my eating and stuff, so I was kind of getting treatment, but I wouldn't say it was something that we really worked on, and I don't think it was something that she ever kind of helped me to get over. I had things like, you know, they're like 101 things to do before you self-injure, and just silly things like that, but I don't think I ever really got any proper help for the self-injury. Well, if I did, you know, I don't really remember it. I guess a lot of it was a blur because it was such a horrible time, but it was kind of something that I had to deal with myself. I'm saying that in a good way, you know. It was nice to know that I accomplished that myself, because I don't cut anymore. I haven't cut for, I don't really want to say, you know, I don't want to be like setting goals and stuff for, you know, how long it's been since I've cut, because it's just something that I just want to move on from. But I did get over it myself. You know, there are times when I've stumbled, but it was something that I picked myself up on myself, and I don't think I really needed treatment for it, because I was getting treatment for the things that was causing my self-injury, whereas for others, you know, like I said, that might be the main problem, that's what they need actual treatment for. So I think that's probably why I didn't really get help for it, because it was a coping mechanism, and it was better to be coping doing that than, you know, doing other things, basically. And that's probably how my counsellor saw it. But it was a really hard time, and it wasn't very nice, and no kind of coping mechanisms like that are obviously very nice, but I think it's more those people who actually struggle with that as their main problem. It's kind of like an addiction for someone who has it as a main problem, and they obviously will have coping mechanisms to get away from that, like an eating disorder might use self-injury as a coping mechanism. And I can imagine how hard it is to get over something like that when that's your main issue. And it helps when you have people around you that are supportive about it. When I did my video on my personal channel, should we hide our scars? Because it was getting to summer and I was getting really paranoid about them, and I kind of realised just how much there was, you know, you could really see the scars, basically. And my friend saw it, and she told me to just embrace them. You know, they're a part of me, and it felt so nice to have her say that to me. And because I was never really sure, you know, because it wasn't something that I ever talked about to my friends directly, and it was nice for them to kind of accept that I went through that, and for them to be so supportive about it. And so it does help when you've got friends, you know, friends that can help you through things like that. I really do feel lucky every day to have the friends that I do have. Without them, I really don't know where I'd be. But there are a lot of people that get over self-injury on their own, and, you know, I'm so proud of people that do that. I've had so much support throughout everything that I've been through, and gosh, how people do it alone, you know, you're just so amazing and strong. I have got through a lot of things on my own. I think Bobby wants to get in the video. But yeah, it's just, I kind of feel like I'm just going on a bit now. But self-injury has been a part of my journey. I wouldn't say it is now as such. Self-injury isn't self-harming, but self-harming, you know, I'm just talking about cutting here, and what people forget is, you know, self-harming can come out under a lot of things except just cutting. You know, purging comes under self-harming. You know, you're harming yourself. There are lots of things that can come under self-harming except from cutting. You know, and I've been through, you know, my fair share of purging and just horrible kind of, do you know what, I'm saying this, that they're just my coping mechanisms, but just starving yourself, or, you know, doing stuff like that, that's self-harming, really. And I'm saying that's not my main problem. Kind of feeling a bit of a hypocrite here. So I guess self-injury actually was part of my main issue. Having a bit of a realisation here. So my whole journey has been self-harm. You know, I've inflicted everything on myself. I've been harming myself, been harming my body. So I've been right round it, really, haven't I? And all along I've just been thinking that my self-injury was just my coping mechanism, but really it was my main problem. That's what I love about blogs, you can just kind of discover anything as you're talking along. I never saw kind of what I've been through and what I've been doing my whole journey as a form of self-harm, which kind of took me back a bit, actually, to think that I've never saw it as a way to self-injure myself, basically. You know, there are just so many ways of which you can self-harm, and I think when somebody says self-injury, I think a lot of people automatically think cutting, and that's what I was talking about when I first started making this video. That's all I was thinking about, self-injury is cutting. Obviously I know it's not just self-cutting, but what I didn't realise was, you know, I've been self-injuring all the time. And I guess you could say I still do self-injure then. I'm still doing stuff to my body that's harmful. It's quite therapeutic doing vlogs. I can see why people do vlogs now. Not that I want to start doing them. I think you'll get a bit sick of me a bit quicker than you do watching my other videos. Yeah, it'd be nice to hear from some people and kind of hear your stories, what you've been through and how you kind of came about it. So, you know, if you're in treatment, who knows about it, how it started, when it started, and it'd be nice to hear from some people. It's always great to be connected with people and kind of be supporting each other sometimes. So it's always good not to get caught up in that, because that's my problem. You know, I get caught up in other people's problems and helping people too much that I forget about myself. So, thanks for listening to me droning on about myself. It's kind of been feels a bit like a vlog, a video diary almost. So thanks for listening, and I shall make another video next week. I'm really sorry about the light as well. Like, I keep doing it late because I just keep forgetting all the time because I'm just so busy with everything right now. It's just ridiculous. So I'm going to make it in a day next time. So it's going to be better lighting, I promise. Cross my heart. So yes. That's all for now, everybody.